Welcome to another edition of Action 14. I'm Mike Briggs. We bring you information from the city, from the schools, and from the arts. I start things out with Dan Mellis, Superintendent of Plymouth School District. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me again, Mike.
It's been a tough winter. We're now finding some warmness, but boy, you had some cold days in the first part of February.
Well, I'll tell you what, January, we were all talking about, wow, this has been a really warm January, nothing too bad. And then all of a sudden February hit and holy smokes, that was cold.
Now, we did test your plan of going virtual, and how did all that go? Explain why you did it, how it worked. Maybe that's better.
Yeah, sure. In this season of COVID, all of the different things that schools are doing, there is some freedom to experiment with some things. And so for years and years, people thought, now that we have technology, couldn't we do an online snow day? When kids have a snow day, couldn't we have the kids work virtually or remotely from home, and so then you wouldn't have to miss a day of school because of inclement weather, and put less pressure on people to come in. So we wanted to test it, and we picked a day that looked like it was going to be snowy. Turned out it wasn't.
Wasn't as snowy as we thought.
Too snowy, but we gave everybody a day's notice or 2 days' notice. And so in the elementary school, where it's a lot different, most of the kids are in school every day, and they aren't using technology remotely on a daily basis. So that group, we needed to build up get them ready, make sure they had devices that they could take home, make sure that we had a plan for the day that parents understood and the kids understood. And so that was the big experiment.
Yeah.
And so we sent all that home. We actually had some of the classes send home, of the young kids, send home just some packet-based materials. Other ones sent home computer-based materials. And then we have been calling parents, talking to teachers, looking at results of who was interactive online to determine how well people were able to access their learning when they were remote on a snow day. And so that's what we did. And what we're finding is a little bit surprising. We're finding that kids even the little ones, that brought a device home and were involved in a classroom experience online. So teacher is there waving at the kids, kind of the Google Meet, the Zoom concept. Turned out that the engagement and the return on schoolwork was actually better in that setting, even for first graders, than it was when a packet of material went home and then it was brought back. So preliminary results yet, but I think what we found is, one, we certainly can do it. If there was a big snowstorm coming and we could tell it was coming, or a winter freeze that was below 35 degrees, wind chill or ambient temperature, we could call it in advance and get it done. We know how to get the materials to people, and we're planned for that. So one, we can do it. Two, we think that the technology angle of it is maybe more productive, even for the kids we didn't think it was going to be more productive for, the little ones, than those packet materials that we're offering. So we're learning, and constantly, this year is giving us a chance to evolve in different and unforeseen ways. And so that's what we did, and I think we learned some things, and it remains to be seen whether we'll do that on a regular basis in the future, but we certainly can do it.
Well, and so this is something you can take into the future, that we may not have any more snow days.
It could be.
Ever.
It could be.
Yeah.
Although, living around here, there are going to still be some days where, it was supposed to be 2 inches of snow.
Yep, and we got 6.
The lake gets involved, and all of a sudden there's 8, and it's blowing like crazy, and nobody's prepared for it. I don't know that you can ever get away from snow days or those fog days, sometimes in spring.
Right.
I don't know that you can ever get away from it completely, but I think you can get away from, a pretty obvious incoming big blast of cold, or or snow or something that you know is coming.
Well, let's go to our school board meeting that we had. The school board meeting, I should tell everybody, is the third Tuesday of every month in the high school amphitheater starting at 5:30.
Yep.
This month, you did have your meeting in a different room, in what we call a board room, because we have activities happening. We have an activity happening on the stage and in the amphitheater, so you actually met in the board room. And you had some information, first of all, legislative update.
Right, every month, I think we've talked about that on this show before, the superintendents from in the county meet with all of our local state representatives, and sometimes our national congressman will pop in and talk with us too. And so the point of that meeting is for us to share our thoughts about issues affecting the school districts with our legislators, because sometimes having a conversation with us will give them better information that they can make better decisions with. And sometimes we can lobby for things that we think are, better paths to do things. So as an example would be this month, the ESSER 2 funds, the COVID relief funds that were signed in the previous administration are coming out. They'll be coming to the states, and those funds are for a number of different things. One of the things is to offset costs that schools incurred because of COVID. Mm-hmm. For example, we're running our air handling system, our HVAC system, air in and air out at a much higher rate than we typically would in a regular year. So we're using more electricity than we normally would. So the funds that are coming in are designed to offset those types of expenses that we have here. So 90% of those funds are linked to a federal formula that is, distributed throughout the state. Everybody is kind of subject to that federal formula. 10% of the funds were discretionary to states. And so the Joint Finance Committee took a chunk of those funds with the intention of using those funds to incentivize districts to be in-person learning. Mm-hmm. And also maybe to reward districts that have been, or to maybe tell people that weren't in person to get in person. But so we met with the legislators, and what Plymouth was originally intended to get was X amount. Now that money was taken out, Plymouth will get less, and there's a formula for us to get more money back based on how many days our kids were in school. But the formula, it looks like to us, the superintendents who understand some school financing issues, looks like we're not going to get as much money as we originally were intended to get. And we've been in session with our kids almost entirely from the get-go. And if the incentive, so sometimes it takes, the point of it is, we work with our legislators to help them understand sometimes things that maybe were well-intended have some other consequences. And so our meeting helped them understand that a little bit. I don't know that anything can change now because they already did what they did, but there's a third round of funding for COVID relief that's coming out soon from the new administration. And if they understand this part now, maybe they won't make that same pull of funding that they did the last time. Mm-hmm.
The bottom line is that there is an effort to cover some of the expenses that were increased because of all of what we've gone through.
Right, from the federal level.
Yeah. Dina Budrecki spoke about some information about the community connection and showed a short film.
Right. In the Plymouth School District, we have our strategic plan, which is based on our pillars of excellence, and those are academic, community relations, extracurricular, and financial. Those are so we've got a strategic plan in each one of those areas. And she talked about the fact that we've had the board this year review our future states. So it's the big goals that we drive towards, our future states. And what the board has put put in place in each one of those future states is an increased intentionality towards connecting kids and teachers and staff members to the community, and vice versa, the community to the schools. And so there's work afoot in the district to try to make sure that those kinds of things happen, and happen at an increased rate. And so what Dina showed was a video of what we've currently got going on in our career and technical education area, which is what people might remember as SHOP and home ec, and that now it's engineering and culinary arts and business. And so what they did was they put together a video that showed all of the different, not all of them, but lots of different examples of how the community connects with our kids and vice versa in those subject-specific areas. So, you know, our relationship with Sargento or Viking or the local banks and financial institutions working in our business area, local colleges like UWGB through Sheboygan area campus, and all of those connections are impacting kids, giving them a chance for some real world experience, sometimes giving adults who work in the fields of business or tech a chance to come into our schools and work with kids that have they've got an interest in these areas, so it's kind of a way for them to feel good about influencing the future. It's always a good opportunity just to get people together so that they can see what's going on. But of course, during this time, all of that is pretty much virtual. Yeah. So some of the examples were from previous, before the pandemic began, but there are plenty of good examples still of how our community and our kids are engaged with each other. But we're going to be looking to improve and increase that connectivity in the next 3 years.
Okay. And it is nice to have community members speak to our students, and our students also help out the community. Right. That's very nice.
Yep, and there's a lot of ways to do it. My wife has been saying for years that as she's driving around in fall, we have some beautiful pear and apple trees in the community, in town, that in some cases never get picked. And all those big pears and beautiful apples just sometimes fall to the ground. So what a great opportunity for our ag students or maybe our culinary arts to go out and offer to help collect that, keep the yard clean, but then maybe even make something, you know, for our lunch program. So there's those kinds of things that are out there.
I know that you spoke an update about COVID and some revisions, and I think we need to explain those revisions to our community.
Yeah. So every school district at the beginning or near the end of summer came up with their plan to deal with the pandemic by producing, this is our reopening plan, how we're going to run our school district, our programming throughout the entire school year. Well, of course, things have changed. You know, when we started in September, we had a relatively low number of cases. Got into October and November, and we had a surge of cases, and we had almost 300 kids in quarantine at one particular time in this district. Now we have 1 or 2.
Right.
And so things have been lower and steadier for quite some time now. And so we've adjusted, and plus science has learned and understood things differently about how the virus works and spreads. Vaccines are coming online. So there's been a lot of changes lately. And so what the board has done, I think, to their credit, was very helpful in us staying in school this entire time, was give the district leadership team and then the planning teams in the buildings some flexibility in how we approached problem solving and programming for the school year. And so what we asked was for the board to give us an additional piece of flexibility that would allow us to bring high school students back as it was appropriate into an everyday situation here at the high schools. Currently, we are A days and B days. Right. So half the kids are in one day, the other half are in the next day. And they're virtual on the days that they're not in. So We have already begun to bring students back into school full-time. Those students, some of those students were struggling to engage in the current system. We are looking at different ways to bring more students back in, whether that might be with an individual class at a time, or maybe a larger group. But the whole intent of that is we're studying it, and we're looking at the best and the most appropriate way to get all those kids an opportunity to be back in by the end of the year, we're hoping. Now, things could go haywire with the virus, and that's all off. But we have the flexibility to do that now, and to also look at some of those big moments for kids, things like graduation and those larger group gatherings that we're trying to figure out how we can make some of that happen for this end of this school year.
Also, we have to talk facilities. You had an update on some possible changing or work that's going to be happening here.
Right. Our facilities committee meets. We've finished up the referendum work that has been done. There's some warranty types of things that we're still working on. However, there's always something, it's like home ownership, that needs to be fixed. And so we have after I've been here for 18 years, we now have a healthy fund balance where it allows us to not short-term borrow in the months before the tax revenue comes in, which is very good for our taxpayers in the district because we don't have to borrow money, which you have to pay back interest on. A flip side of that is we have built, the way you don't have to short-term borrow is if you have a healthy fund balance. So our fund balance is enough now that we can pick off 1 or 2 projects every summer. So last summer we fixed up the windows at Horizon. We did a boiler in the high school building. This summer we're looking at picking off an item, which is the roof at the auditorium for Riverview. There was some work that needed to be done, and so I think as of today there was just a walkthrough with some contractors, and they're checking out the extent of the work that needs to be done. And I'm very confident that by beginning of school year next year, we'll have a new roofing on the auditorium at Riverview.
Good, good. Before we wrap up, let's talk about the end of the winter sports season. Happened earlier this year. It was a much shorter season, both in wrestling, swimming, basketball, but we still had some very fantastic outcomes.
Yep, we certainly did. Mentioned basketball last. The boys basketball team won the conference 2 years in a row. That hasn't happened in a long time. We finished 8th place in boys swimming in state. A number of different qualifiers. Our FBLA is a growing club here. We sent 76 students, or we're sending 76 students to a state-esque event. It's COVID time, so everything's a little different. And our wrestlers this year, we had 2 wrestlers placed at state. So that's one of our better outcomes in a number of years.
I think it's been 18 years since we've when we placed more than 1.
Yeah, so impressive. And we had a 3rd state qualifier as well. And so just a shout out to those kids, just because I know them that are out there. Evan Ladwig finished 4th, and Silas Daly finished 3rd. Kind of an impressive thing there for Silas Daly. He's our first state place winning freshman.
That is correct.
Ever.
Right, the first time ever we had a freshman place in state. First time ever. And you have to understand, Evan Lodwig should be congratulated because he's only wrestled less than 3 years.
Right.
He admitted how much better it made football for him. He's going to be playing football at Iowa State, and how wrestling helped him prepare for footwork, handwork, all part of wrestling. And so it was nice to have him talk about that and also place 4th in the state.
Right. You know a little about wrestling, Mike?
It's been a part of my life, yes. I've always enjoyed it. I have some great memories, just fantastic. I want to thank you for being on.
Thank you.
Let's remind everyone again that school board meetings are the 3rd Tuesday of every month, starting at 5:30 right here in the high school amphitheater. And be part of what's happening in the school.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And when we come back, I've got the mayor in the house, and so he's going to be answering some tough questions about how come it's so cold here in Plymouth. So stay right with us. You're watching Action 14. Good. Welcome back to Action 14. As promised, I've got Mayor Pullman on the hot seat. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's always great to be back in front of our TV 14 audience and giving them any updates that we can. And I'm sure you'll have a couple surprises for me.
Well, first of all, the first 3 weeks of February were not only snowy, but cold. We were so pleased that January was nice, but boy, the first 3 weeks of February were just vicious. And I guess my question then would follow is, how's everything going with the city and all of the different cold and snow that we've had to struggle with?
Well, I'm glad to report that January was very good.
Yep.
But you're talking about February now.
Yeah.
And well, the good news is we as City Hall are concerned about it. And just last week, our new administrator, Skiff, had a 2-hour meeting with department heads because there's a lot going on with the budget process and with the cold and the snow and the ice and overtime. Things can get out of whack real quick. So he called for an update, and of course, now we just had another snowstorm, and that causes more problems. But I think his background, which is in Public Works in Fond du Lac, is looking like it's really starting to pay off, because that's our biggest budget, is payroll and Department of Public Works, because of all the road work and everything else that's done. And so he's really on top of that, which is impressive, and it makes us feel good. Unofficially speaking, I think it's the snowiest winter February that we've had on record.
Oh, it feels like it, doesn't it?
It's been terrible.
Yeah.
And it just, where do you go next? I mean, we're even picking snow up in the residential neighborhoods because the streets are becoming a little too narrow. But we have a good crew. Our workers get the job done. They jump at it. They don't stop. They don't take breaks because they're determined to get the job done, and it's really fantastic. And my hat's off to all the crew for doing that, so that we have safe streets and they keep them open for us.
Yeah, I can comment that having been out and about a bit on this past Sunday, when it was snowing heavily after 7 o'clock, and I saw the trucks out there. The guys were out there on a Sunday night going at it.
They were, and then of course they were out early Monday morning as well to once again make sure that the streets were, and now this time of the week it almost looks like we didn't have any snow. So it's a testament to what they do. But I guess talking about the snow and the abundance of it probably reminds me of one request that I would have for our listening audience out there, our viewers, in that, just like myself, I have a fire hydrant on my corner where I live, and we don't normally think of these things as citizens, but shoveling those out makes sure that, one, they're accessible in case there's a fire, and some in our community have had some situations this winter, unfortunately. So we need access to those, but because of the cold weather that we had, then the snow, those fire hydrants will actually freeze up. And if they did have to get to them, they're frozen. So I shoveled mine out. I invite all of our citizens that have a fire hydrant to shovel them out. And it doesn't take much time, but it could save someone's house or someone's property. And certainly that would be a nice thing to do, and it'll help our community in the long run. So it does help, but it's a necessary thing that we don't always run into, but because of, like you said, the abundance of February, and it's been a pretty tough month, that would be a big help. So thank you.
It's sort of fitting that my next question would be involving, as you might guess, budget. Now, how's the you're starting a new year, how's the budget holding up?
Well, I think we're doing, under the circumstances, I think we're pretty good. Actually had a couple meetings with our administrator, and he wanted to get a handle on things, which is nice coming into a new situation. And we reviewed the last 5 years of equipment purchases. He was pretty impressed with the equipment that we purchased, more impressed that we paid for it because of our fiscal policy that we have in place. And then, again, being his DPW experience, and he's an engineer by trade, he also is very concerned about our policy for street upgrades, equipment upgrades, and then repairs. And we've been pretty aggressive, due mainly to the fact that we're under a lead abatement order that we've identified 750 properties or something like that with possible lead. And every time we do a street, and of course that's $1 million budget item for us every year, we keep picking up 30, 40, 50 properties that we're doing the laterals in the roadway. And so when he saw our policy and our aggressive approach to that, different communities do it different ways, and that's how they decide to do things. But our policy has been not to charge, for instance, the road work in front of your house or your property, that if you have 90 feet of frontage, you get charged, your 90 feet of that road project to the center line. And my folks had it up in Appleton about 10 years ago, and they got a bill for $12,000. And it's like, where did that come from? So each community is a little different. Plymouth has never charged the homeowner for that. We simply put it in as part of our improvement in the community. And Jordan was very happy to see that. It makes it much more manageable in the budget process. And even though we're being aggressive at this and we don't charge back that to the homeowner, we've done it long enough that we have that system in place. And now we're kind of piggybacking our sewer laterals with the same time that we're changing out the water laterals. And we do have, which...
It'd be good to talk about, again, to our audience about the benefits that Plymouth can help our families to have safe water.
Well, and that's important because it's in the news, and of course the weather in Texas and they don't have water because it's freezing up, and, you know, we put our pipes down far enough that we don't have that problem, and of course, they're not used to that down there, but there's a lot of things that go into the strategic planning in a community, and Plymouth has done this for, you know, 50, 60 years, so it's rather important that they, you know, continue on that effort. And we do have currently a chargeback of $750 when we reconnect after we come in, excavate the street, put in new laterals and everything else, and shut your water off for a time and inconvenience you. But we don't charge you for any of that. But we do put a new connect valve on that instead of being in the roadway, where if something goes wrong, your plumber has to come out, dig up the roadway for, you know, maybe a measly $3,000, $4,000. And then, of course, you got to patch the roadway, and it looks like, you know, someone's checkerboard square after 10 years, and the road has got more bumps in it, and it's like, well, how did that happen? So we moved that valve out to actually between the curb and the sidewalk, and put it in there. So if there's any digging to do, they dig down through the dirt rather than through the asphalt and the concrete curb and everything else. So when we did that, we actually instituted a revolving loan fund that that $750, you have 10 years to pay it back at very low interest, and we established this loan fund for people who unexpectedly might have this charge that they didn't ask for, but the $750, I figure is cheaper than someone paying $3,000, $4,000. We had one last year that was almost $8,000 to run new pipes into the house. It doesn't matter what the cost is, it's expensive, and it's an unbudgeted item in a household when things are as bad as they are, to go and say, well, we can do it because, you know, we're the city and we can put it on your tax bill, and tough. Well, we came up with a solution to that so that that's not a burden on homeowners. And I think that that's a very important thing to tell people about. And that information is available for citizens to either talk to the clerk's office or go on our website, and that same information is available on the website for the revolving low-interest loan.
I guess I'll just wrap things up by asking you about how the city is handling the COVID problem, and kind of, things are getting better, but we still are being very careful. Am I correct?
We are, and I think that that's a good update to finish with. There's better reports every day, because I think people are being respectful of other individuals, and we're masking up, trying not to spread things. This, on the city side, we're still altering some of our workforce and scheduling at-home work, plus alternating hours in the office so that we still cover things. And of course, when our crews are out, like snow plowing, you know, they're in their truck alone. They don't have to put the mask on because they're all alone. You know, it's not a problem. But when you enter any city property, the library is city property, City Hall, the utilities, a mask is required. Obviously, some people have medical conditions and it makes it difficult, but we're trying to follow the same protocol that Sheboygan County has laid out. It is not a mandatory situation, but it is a suggested situation. And I think when you ask people to participate in social distancing and different things, it's a good thing. It helps
Right.
all of us. And I think recognizing that is something that we can all do and help get through some of this now winter months. And we all know this is also flu season. So, you know, if we get rid of one, we'll get the other. I don't know what's worse, but it's not going to go away tomorrow or
No.
yesterday. And I think everybody doing their part is a good thing. So
Now, make sure
that's
you
good.
understand, folks, that if you go to City Hall or to utilities, make sure you mask up when you go. Also to the library, I should mention that just recently, the library is open to the public a few hours a
Yep,
day, just a
yep,
few.
It's limited.
So make
That's
sure you
correct.
understand their hours. It's not back to the same hours, but the doors are open again.
Yep.
They want you to stay only 30 minutes or less, but at least the library's back open.
Well, and we don't want to say get in and get out, but we're trying to have facilities accessible to the public, and our library is one of the best in the county. So we get a lot of traffic in there, and we're trying to process people, get things in, and get it used, because that's important that we have that resource available in the community.
Well, I want to thank you for being on.
You're welcome, always a pleasure.
I should remind our viewing audience that the city council meetings are the second and last Tuesday of every month, starting at a new time, which is
7 o'clock.
7 p.m.
And we are in the Assembly Hall, social distancing, so
Right.
you're welcome to come.
Right, so be part of what's happening in the city. Thank you again for being with
You're
me.
welcome, Mike.
When we come back, we're going to be talking arts. The arts in Plymouth is fantastic, and we're going to bring you some more information about some items coming up in the spring. Stay right with us. You're watching Action 14. Welcome back to Action 14. As promised, we're going to be talking arts, and I've got Donna Hahn with me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike.
It's been a tough winter.
It has.
It's been a tough year. And, but the arts are still happening. We still have things going on.
We have a pretty full schedule, actually.
Yeah.
We don't have as many people coming into the building, but we do have
Yeah.
things going on.
Well, I should mention one of the things that are wrapping up. If you haven't been there yet, the Couples Winter Blast, that's done March 5th.
That's correct.
And so make sure that if it's after March 5th and you're watching this, you missed it.
Yes.
But it is a pretty neat item.
It is a very nice show. It's quite a variety of work. 8 couples from the area, and everybody does something different. So it's a nice variety of work, and you know, lots of it is for sale.
And another item that's coming up very quickly is the fact that Alive in the Arts, you've got your annual juried competition.
This is for any artist that lives in Wisconsin. You can be an emerging artist, you can be a professional artist. We'd like you to apply. And it's only $25 to enter, and we're hiring a judge. We have Benita Budish from Manitowoc area, and she's our judge this year. And you know, we're expecting a big turnout.
But understand that you have to have everything in. The deadline is March 12th.
That's right. The postmark deadline, you can drop it off, or if you're mailing it, make sure that you get to the post office on the 12th,
yeah.
so you get that postmark.
And I think I want to back up to the Couples Winter Blast. That's going to be done on March 5th.
That's correct.
In a couple weeks, you'll have something else that I can come down and see?
Yes, actually, we have a student art show that's opening on March 12th as well. And that's the deadline for the Live in Arts, but you know, we still have other things going on. This show is going to be student artwork from some of the schools in Plymouth, and we have some schools in Sheboygan and Sheboygan Falls, I believe. So, you know, it's going to be a nice variety. Some of the artwork will have been created right here at the Art Center. So it'll be a nice full show, and that's in the gallery this year. So that's new.
Yes. And so it's students.
Student.
Ages.
I think anywhere from 4 years through high school.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's one of those times when you go and visit the Arts Center where you can giggle a little,
Oh, sure.
smile at what you see.
Sure.
And heartwarming, I guess, is the term I would use.
Right, and that's on the wall for about 2 weeks. And then we have another show that opens right after that, which is the Water's Edge Artists. And
Yep.
that opens in April, so.
Now, the Water's
Quick.
Edge Artist, that opens on April 2nd.
It opens on April 2nd, although that's Good Friday. So we're observing the Good Friday, you know, everyone's going to services. So we'll have it open in the morning. You can come in and see it if you'd like, but then the actual party or the opening reception will be on the 9th,
On the 9th of March.
1 week later, right?
So on the 9th of March, there'll be an opening
on April.
reception.
April
I'm sorry,
9th.
April 9th.
Right.
And we should mention that it's a tribute to
Yes.
one of the artists that had been very important to the growth of the Arts Center.
Absolutely. Kitty Lynn Klisch was our resident art teacher from 1997 through 2014. And she was just a gem. We
Yep.
love her, we miss her. She passed away in December of 2019. And the Water's Edge Artists are a group that started about 15 years ago, and she was their president from 2017 through 2019. And even though she was struggling with her illnesses, she still participated right up until the end. And this group is paying tribute to her.
And so make plans now that it opens on the 2nd of April. Just in the morning you'll
Right.
be open. And then on the 9th, you will have a gathering and
Yes.
celebrate the grand opening of the Water's Edge Artists.
So we're going to have some of Kitty's work. Her
Oh.
husband has allowed us to use some of her artwork in the show. And we're also going to feature a few other things that she did in her, long career as an artist, and she was also a performing artist. So we're going to have a beautiful dress on display that she wore in one of her early years of performing in Las Vegas, actually,
nice.
and some other, memorabilia. So
Yeah, we had her
nice.
on ACTION14 a few times, and she was always so nice to have
Yes.
on to talk about the art world, because she was so excited about being able to perform, if you will, perform
Yes.
with a brush as well as being able
Right.
to perform on stage.
And TV14 actually did a wonderful show with Kitty called Gallery Works. And we have many,
Yep.
many of the CDs in our library
Yeah.
that we can check out. And she interviewed artists, and it was just a really wonderful show.
Yeah, those were the days, huh? Yeah. How many years again now have we had the Arts Center open?
We're in our 28th year.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And you have been involved in it for?
21 years now.
Yes, 21 years of playing in the arts.
Yes.
And the one thing about it, it doesn't get old.
No.
There's always something new out there and refreshing.
And we do, speaking of new, I'm not sure if, excuse me, if Tricia mentioned this last time when she was on the show, but our education coordinator came up with another new idea.
Okay.
And it's art exploration for families. So what you can do is register with us or online. And there's a fee for, whether you have 2 children, 4 children, or more. And you can come in on a Wednesday morning or on a Saturday morning or Saturday late morning, I believe. And you can bring the family, and we'll have all the tables set up for you. All the supplies
Oh,
will
man.
be there. And you'll have, painting and drawing, and you will lead your children, but all the mess will be with us.
Oh, well, I wish you'd have had that when my kids were young.
So you could come in, and it's a 75-minute session.
Okay.
And we'll, sanitize and everything when the session's over, and bring in the next group. But you can bring, grandma and grandpa along if you like.
Goodness.
And, it'll just be a fun day for the kids.
And honestly,
families.
it could be just grandpa and grandma and the grandkids.
That's correct.
It could be. So think about all the different ways you could mix that up and have some fun.
Right, and there will always be a new project, so if you come, maybe once a month or whatever, next month there's going to be a new project.
Okay.
So it'll be
That's a great idea.
variety. Yeah,
And before we go back to a couple other items, make sure you stop down to the Arts Center. Yes, wear a mask, that's required.
We do
But nevertheless,
require.
stop down, sign up for some of these items, and then visit the gift shop.
yes,
The gift shop is marvelous items by many local artists.
right. And I just rearranged it, so it looks all brand new.
Oh, I haven't been there, I'll have to stop in.
Well, we have, our members are featured in the gift shop, and so if you're a member, we'll, allow you to bring some pieces in, and we like to rotate our members. So there's always something new on the wall.
Yeah, that's what's always nice about going to the Arts Center, is that every couple of months there's a new show going on.
Right.
And then there's always something new in the gift area, if you will. One other item before we go that I forgot to mention earlier is that you've got coming up March 18th through the 21st, Sentimental Journey and Song.
There are 4 shows of this particular show, and it's a group that formed about 7 or 8 years ago. They call themselves Celtic Folk, but they do more than Celtic music. It's a really beautiful variety of music, and this time, because it's close to St. Patrick's Day, they're going to throw in a few Irish tunes as well.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, now that is March 18th through the 21st.
And we are going to be socially distancing that day and requiring masks. And of course, when you drink your wine, you can take your mask off and have a sip.
There you go.
And we just have probably room for about 35 to 40 people, within the great room, so that you'll be far enough away from the stage and from each other.
So you'll feel safe, and still, we've got to get back to enjoying the
do.
arts. We have to get back because we've been shut down too long.
Right. And, looking ahead, we are going to do our spring art tour. We have everything lined
right.
up. Our brochures are being printed right now, so that's June 4th and 5th. 2 days, it's free. I mean, you can't go wrong,
And you drive around the area,
Yes.
visiting different art places that many of them don't normally have any guests.
That's right.
And that day, they're opening the doors.
And we have a couple new ones this year too.
good.
So, and everybody's been, creating art just to get ready for this weekend. And it's going to be fun again.
Yep, that's the first weekend in June. And so we'll talk more about that next month when we get together,
Right,
okay?
right.
Yeah, we'll bring you more information about that.
Just want to say thank you to our sponsors because, we would not be able to
I
do
know.
this without them. And the Sentimental Journey and Song is sponsored by Masters Gallery, Paul and Kathy Sartori, and the Wisconsin Arts Board. And then the 2 upcoming art shows, Bouncing Back, the children's art show, as well as the Water's Edge, it's sponsored by Franz Bacchus and Paul and Kathy Sartori.
Oh, fantastic.
So we're
Yes,
very lucky.
particularly during these rough times, you need the support of our community.
We absolutely do, and
Yes.
we're very grateful.
Let me mention that the Arts Center hours, before we wrap it up here,
Okay.
the hours are Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then Saturday and Sunday, noon to 3 p.m.
That's right.
So make time in your busy schedule to stop down to the Arts Center. Wear your mask, but come down and enjoy the arts of Plymouth.
Thank you, Mike.
Oh, thank you for being on. And I want to thank you for being with us. It's been marvelous to get back out and bring you some information. And so I'll just say, until next time, I'll be seeing you on the radio. Bye-bye. Great.